A few $100,000 per Bitcoin a couple months ago when we were hitting these lows here, $15,000, $16,000, everybody would have said, this sounds insane. This is never gonna happen. My $30,000 per month analyst team believes that we can see a $200,000 Bitcoin at the end of this year. And while this might sound crazy to a couple of you guys, it's very simple. Demand right now is much, much higher than supply. And we'll get into this in a second. And we'll also discuss in the charts why a 200K Bitcoin at the end of this year already. I'm not talking end of the bull cycle, right? I'm talking end of this year is likely to happen. The Bitcoin halving event is happening in only 36 days from now. And for all of you guys who don't know what this means, supply of Bitcoin is being cut in half in 36 days. The most famous people in the world, guys like Drake, are posting Bitcoin to their audience. 146 million people on his Instagram. Let's say 20% of these people are watching his story, maybe even more with a guy like him. And he exposes Bitcoin to these people, okay? The hype is building up, things are getting serious. And in this video, we're going to cover the most important things that is happening in crypto right now, that's happening in Bitcoin right now. We'll cover the charts, and we are covering why right now Bitcoin is pretty bullish. And I'll also explain why it's not too late to go long on Bitcoin and why we most likely see a way higher Bitcoin at the end of the year, and especially at the end of next year or mid of next year. As you can see here, demand for Bitcoin is skyrocketing as institutions are coming in and selling Bitcoin ETF to all of their clients, right? They have billions and billions and billions of inflows that are flowing into the market, flooding the market, and we only have limited supply. This makes Bitcoin so powerful. There are only 21 million Bitcoin. You cannot create more. And we already have 19.65 million that are already in existence, okay? Then there are 1.34 million Bitcoins left to be mined. And one thing that all of us has to really internalize, they cannot print more. It's limited. You cannot just say, like with the euro, with the dollar, with the rupee, with all of these fiat currencies, hey, we have more demand, let's just print more. Doesn't work with Bitcoin. That's the cool part about it. Now, this is a really interesting piece of information here. Bitcoin has 6 months until ETF Liquidity Crisis new analysis, okay? Analysts are being there, and they're obviously saying, hey, we have a crazy demand over here, but we have limited supply. What actually happens if demand just goes up and up and up and up the entire time, but supply goes down? Okay, what is happening to the Bitcoin price? With any financial asset, we always have bears against bulls, okay? And they're outweighing, hey, how much is this asset worth? What's the actual value, okay? And what they're saying here is Bitcoin bears cannot win while ETF flows continue, right? We have these massive institutions are just flooding the market, and they're selling the ETF, they're selling this financial asset to their clients. They have a giant client base, right? And while other asset managers all over the world, and we'll get to this in a second, are seeing BlackRock win and making stupid amount of money by selling this as a financial asset, right? Obviously, other asset managers are joining the party, and they're like, hey, I want a piece of the pie. This means demand goes up like crazy while supply, again, is cut, okay? Insane. What they mean by liquidity crisis is that there are simply not enough sellers to settle demand. And this means price can go just nuclear, okay? If you don't have any sellers or very less sellers in the order book, but people are just keep on buying, long. What do you think is going to happen to the Bitcoin price? Here's the argument why Bitcoin could easily hit $200,000 by the end of this year. My analyst's Bitcoin target for the end of this year was 120K. He has changed his forecast to 200K. The Bitcoin ETF and all of these institutions, big corporations pushing money into the market is such a crazy and powerful catalyst. And they're only starting right now. The mass adoption and all of these broad people coming into crypto, coming into Bitcoin is such a powerful thing. After Wall Street created such a great demand and billions of dollars are just flooding into the market. Asset managers from all over the world, Hong Kong, Singapore, they're filing for Bitcoin spot ETFs. Let's just do a short thought experiment here for a bit. What do you think? What kind of demand these companies are going to create? While BlackRock and entire Wall Street still has their foot on the gas pedal, this is just an explosion if we think about it. And more analysts around the world are more convinced about a 150K price target or even more for Bitcoin. Okay, if we go down here, we see Bitcoin will break out after the next halving event, of course, because if history just rhymes a little bit, we know exactly that this is about to happen, okay? And then we can see here, we estimated 10 billion inflows for 2024 and another $60 billion for 2025, okay? In the last 40 trading days since ETF launch on January 10, Bitcoin ETF inflows have crossed $9.5 billion already. Bitcoin demand is colliding with increasingly tight supply. And as we already know, supply and demand is the most powerful rule in economics. If there are only 300 Porsche GT3 RS in the market, but there are 30,000 people who are dying to get their hands on this car, the price of this car will absolutely double or triple on the aftermarket. If already pre-halving, the demand of Bitcoin outweighs the supply by 10x, what do you think is going to happen if supply gets cut in half? Let's just consider supply and demand for a second. What do you think if demand just goes up and other people are joining the party and are selling Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, and at the same time the supply of this asset stays the same, and after the halving event gets cut in half? This is drastic. Of course the price of this asset will go up. And with this, our long positions and our Bitcoin holdings. 90% of all Bitcoin to be ever created are already out there. And 70% of these Bitcoin have never been moved. This means people are buying and they're holding. Miners right now are supplying 900 Bitcoins per day. The market on the other side demands 9,000 to 10,000 per day. This is 10x. And we have the all-time high plus a great performance of the price already pre-halving. This is very early and very bullish. In just 36 days from now, the supply of Bitcoin will go down to 450 per day. And while other asset management companies are joining the party, most probably the demand will go up with rising media coverage, with rising hype, right? Drake just started. What do you think is the next thing? Logan Paul's going to post about Bitcoin, how he's buying more Bitcoin. Another streamer, another rapper, okay? They're joining the party. Media coverage goes up. The corporations are joining the party, more corporations, many more billions are getting into crypto and Bitcoin. And this is just freaking crazy. They're selling their ETF to a client base of millions and millions and millions of people. At the same time, Instagram story views, millions and millions and millions of people. All of them want their piece of the pie. They're getting the FOMO. People are flooding the market. And this is about to get really interesting. Speaking of high demand, just in, US ETFs to be offered to institutional and retail investors across India by cryptocurrency platform Mudrex. Okay, India has 1.4 billion people living there. Of course, not all of them are in the middle class or higher middle class, and they're not worrying about buying any Bitcoin, right? But at least a couple 100 million people, maybe 200 to 400 million people are potential crypto and Bitcoin investors, okay? And as we know, the rupee is inflating like crazy in India. What do you think what these people are looking for? They're looking for investing their rupees into an asset that cannot inflate. Well, here's Bitcoin. Let me show you why it's only the beginning of big asset managers and big institutions coming in and pushing billions and billions of dollars and bringing so many of millions of people into the Bitcoin and crypto market. Breaking 1.4 billion patient capital management just filed with the SEC to buy Bitcoin ETFs with up to 15% of its opportunity trust fund. Why is this happening? Well, Bitcoin is one of the best performing assets of all times. They mix Bitcoin into their assets with an allocation of maybe 5 to 10% next to all the more boring asset classes like bonds, like treasuries. Of course, they will get greater returns with Bitcoin for their investors. What then happens is, of course, their assets under management goes up as they have a better performance, and the fees that they're collecting on their performance obviously also will go up. And keep in mind, all of these asset managers, when they're selling a Bitcoin ETF, at the same time, they have to buy the real underlying asset and have to hold them. I honestly think that we will see Bitcoin becoming a standard asset you will find in any portfolio. In the last bull cycle, we saw people like Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary shocking the world by saying, hey, I will allocate 5% of my entire net worth into crypto and maybe 2 or 3% into Bitcoin. Now this bull cycle, we see the biggest asset managers in the world talking about pushing 2 to 5% of their assets under management into Bitcoin. At this point of time, we're so bullish and we just see the price go up and up and up from here, okay? But remember, there will be dips, there will be pullbacks, even in a bull cycle. Our number one rule is we want to be able to buy the dips And we don't over leverage ourselves, so we get wiped out, get liquidated, and can't enjoy the rally all the way up. Whenever Bitcoin breaks the all-time high, it enters price discovery mode. This means bears and bulls agree on the current value of the asset. And then after this phase, prices always shoot up, as you can see here. Let's go into the charts. My analyst is very different to the clickbait community, the clickbait culture on social media, right? He always calls the people who are saying $1 million per coin in the next 6 months. He calls them extremely inauthentic because if we're honest, none of us has a special magic mirror we can look into and we're like, exactly in 6 months, we're going to hit 1 million. And then the 6 months after, we're going to hit 2 million, okay? Nobody can really predict that, okay? But one thing that he says is, hey, I wouldn't be shocked if it happens. Okay, so again, nobody has a magic mirror where we can say, hey, this is happening for sure. One thing that we're doing is, with our team, we're remaining long, okay, until we see the upward trend break. Right now, it's a time where we have to stay just long, lean back, okay, chill out, because the market just looks like that we're going up and up and up until we see different behavior, okay, and then we just have to react. This is what we're doing as investors. But please keep in mind, guys, there will be negative situations happening. Keep this in mind, okay? Short-term negativity will be there. Maybe Biden will launch a 30% tax on all miners producing Bitcoin in the US. Any other country threatening to ban crypto, ban Bitcoin, right? Then we will see small dips, small pullbacks, but nothing that we really have to worry about. But these pullbacks are in any bull run. As we can see here, in any bull run, we see these small dips here coming, okay? This here dips, dip, massive dip, okay? Small dip, and then going up, reaching all-time high. We will see them, and we have to be prepared. But the mid and long-term trend for Bitcoin is extremely bullish, okay? Like my analyst always says, any fundamental behavior that we see out there in the market, any news, are directly visible in our graph. And in the chart, we could see the entire time that demand is outperforming supply, okay? The bulls are winning over the bears. That's why we have this movement to the top. And that's why Bitcoin is crashing the all-time high already before the Bitcoin halving. One important fundamental question for the Bitcoin price is how many of these bulls buying Bitcoin are people taking out a loan and investing it then into Bitcoin, right? Because this can lead to a dramatic bloodbath once people have to pay back their loans. They can't afford it, so they have to sell then their asset again. But this usually doesn't happen in the early stage. This is happening when everything goes crazy and only months and months into where we are right now, okay? Once everybody expects only rising prices and everybody's like, everything just goes up, let's get a loan from the bank and push it into Bitcoin, then we're likely to see a situation like this. But nothing to worry about right now, okay? On top of that, the majority of the capital flowing right now into Bitcoin are the ETFs, okay? It's capital from the big institutions. And this is very unlikely that we have a lot of borrowed capital flowing into the ETFs. Let's check the charts. So we're extremely bullish on the long side. We only have this one channel to the upside here. But other than that, there is no major resistance to the top, right? We have free field up here. This means we can see, very likely, massive new all-time highs coming in. On the short side, on the other side, if we pull back and fall down this red line here, we can see a true and pretty massive dip. Likely one of these here, but maybe even a little bit harder. For short-term traders, seeing a pullback down here, this is an exit signal, okay? For mid and long-term investors, the way we are, right? We see everything a little bit more mid and long-term. I stay calm. I actually want to see something like this because then I have the opportunity to buy in at lower prices. If we check the weekly chart, and in case we would see a red candle like we saw here in 2021, we stay calm, we remain calm, and we do not exit our positions if we're mid and long-term investors because we will see a new high coming after this. Doesn't matter how big the dip, doesn't matter if it's this year or even a little bit bigger, we're buying the dips. This is a better entry for us, and it's actually good news. And everybody asking me right now, hey Nick, is it really a good time right now to still buy Bitcoin? I'm not really represented in Bitcoin. I need more. Then I ask myself, why the hell are you still not long? Why? We had so many buying signals, so many buying opportunities, and we're still not into it. We're still not long. So yes, it's still a good time to buy if we compare it to what is about to come. Could we be unlucky and buy right now a new high before we see a massive dip? Yes, but mid and long term, it's going to go up anyways, okay? So if I would be underrepresented in Bitcoin right now, I would still go long for sure. Could you be unlucky in the short term? Yes. Does it matter in the long run? No, it doesn't, okay? I'll end this video here today with the words of my analyst who I pay $30K every single month to. If you want to know a exact prediction how high Bitcoin can go, the only thing I'm going to tell you is we will see highs that nobody could have predicted a couple months ago. And nobody is even thinking about right now.